We're going to run through the first fight between Mike McCallum versus James Toney. And I'm sure everyone who's watching this right now already knows what a classic fight this was. So I won't go long-winded about how elite these two technicians were. But if you want to go down a neat rabbit hole, find this video on Top Rank's YouTube channel. Go to the comment section and you'll see all the hardcore fans dropping knowledge about these two. All right, enough said. Let's get into it. Okay, so James is going to occupy Mike's rear glove right here. And then he's going to drop his weight to the right side of his line and throw that jab to the body. Next, Mike's going to jab as James pulls to his rear foot, parrying that jab right here. Then James is going to push off this rear foot, counter once again, occupying Mike's rear hand. Then he's going to follow up with that jab to the body. Again, Mike jabs as James pulls to his rear foot using that rear hand parry right here. Then James is going to counter back, looking for that lead to the body. All right, James is going to get to that lead foot, snap out that jab. Now he's on the right side of his line. He's going to throw the jab to the body, then come back up top. Okay, Mike's going to get to that lead foot, and here comes that jab while James parries and pulls. Now he's on the right side of his line, and he's looking for that lead to the body. So James on the right side of his line, he'll double jab right here, and then check out that down parry from Mike. All right, so this is a good sequence. Mike's going to flick out that jab as James parries and pulls. Now James is on his rear foot. He's going to push off this rear foot, countering back with his jab. But let's go back to Mike. His head's over his lead foot, and he'll time James with a jab to the body, shifting his weight to the right side of his line right here. James is going to come right back, going high, and then check out all his weights on that lead foot. Then he's going to drop his weight, kicking out this lead foot and going low to the body. Mike's going to flip the script. He'll go high, then low. Now, check out that down parry by James. Little pendulum step by Mike. He'll feint and check out the drop by James. Okay, James is going to throw a jab cross. Mike will catch that jab on that lead foot and then drop under that rear cross. Now, Mike does catch James low, and they'll just walk it off. All right, Mike will jab, but let's watch James. His weight is over that lead foot, but now look, his weight is now on his rear foot. So that jab will come, and James is going to slip inside to that lead foot right here, looking for the lead hook. And they'll time each other here, and then one more time. Now right here, James is going to throw his leaping hook as Mike pulls. Now, Mike's going to come back with his jab, while James looks to counter with his rear cross. Now, James's rear cross gets stifled under this jab, and now he gets stuck on that lead foot. And from here, Mike has his rear uppercut. They'll time each other. Okay, Mike will flick out that jab as James pulls. Then we'll see that a second time. Mike will catch him. Now, Mike drops here, and he looks to double up this jab, but then James follows suit with his own drop. And then check out how James gets to this lead foot, blocking that jab from Mike. All right, James will throw his jab as Mike parries and then pulls to his rear foot right here. Now, James is going to follow up with that rear cross, and Mike's going to pendulum away off of that rear foot. So Mike will get to this lead foot, snap out that jab to the body, and then he'll do it again, but this time James looks to counter right back. Now, James is going to throw a jab as Mike pulls to his rear foot right here. Now, this is pretty neat. Mike's going to get back to this lead foot, throw a leaping jab, getting under James' counter right here. He's going to throw a rear hook to the body, then lead hook to the body. And then he's going to catch this counter from James and then counter back with his own hook. Then get to this lead foot again and flick out that jab. Then feint right here. Okay, James will jab as Mike slips into this lead foot right here. Then he's going to immediately pull to his rear foot as that second jab comes in. Now, they're both worried about the rear cross coming, so they both drop to the right side of their line. All right, Michael fold out that jab as James looks to parry and pull. And then Michael look for that jab to the body as James drops. So Michael initiate with his jab, and something to note, James will miss that parry, but since he combines it with his pull, he'll still evade. And then he's going to continue through his sequence by dropping right here, and then he's going to move or shift his weight to his lead foot, then rear foot. Little pendulum step, he's going to pull that jab, and then drops the double. Now let's watch Mike, little feint, pendulum step, lead foot, rear foot. He's going to snap out that jab, and then he's going to double it up. Okay, here's another neat sequence. James will get to this lead foot, fire out a jab as Mike pulls. Now, right here, James will follow up with a rear cross as Mike pushes off his rear foot to fire out that jab. And here's the neat part. They both continue their patterns even when tied up. Now, Mike's going to throw his rear uppercut right here. And this isn't super clear because it looks like a push, but James will be throwing his lead hook, putting him on his rear foot. All right, Michael push off this rear foot, lift his lead, and drop his weight to the right side of his line, looking for that jab to the body, while James, at the same time, gets to his lead foot and parries right here. Then Mike's going to get back to that lead foot, snap off that jab as James pulls, and then James will do a little drop in case that rear cross should come. Then they'll look to time each other, and again, and this time James is going to push off this rear foot and come back with a rear cross. Then they'll get to the center of the ring. Now this is a good view, so Mike's going to look for that jab to the body. And when your opponent has his lead hand low like James here, it creates a nice little target. So Mike's looking to shoot his jab right here. Now, James is obviously aware that hole exists, so the way to close it would be to pull from his lead foot to his rear foot. So right now it's open, then closed. Michael follow up a jab as James pulls and parries. Another jab. Then we're going to have a couple feints by Mike right here. And then again. So Michael jab as James parries and pulls right here. Now, James is going to push off this rear foot and fold out that jab. But let's watch Mike here. He's on his lead foot. He's going to drop his weight to the right side of his line, throwing a jab to the body on the same beat as James right here. All right, James will change it up here. We've seen a ton of pull and parries, but this time, as Mike jabs, he'll slip his head over his lead foot and throw a lead uppercut. Now, what's interesting is Mike's pattern. After throwing his jab, notice how he drops right here. Now, if you're drawing this up and you're James, this is exactly what you want to have happen. Your opponent jabs, you slip to your lead foot, he drops, and exactly where you want to throw that lead uppercut is where his head will be. Now, he doesn't catch him, but boy, that could have been devastating. Then it turns into a scramble. Mike will jab as James throws his cross. Mike will look for this uppercut, doesn't see it. He'll get back to this lead foot for his jab. So James will go back to that parry and pull right here. Now, he's on his rear foot. He's going to get to his lead foot, check out that cover. Then he's going to use his rear hand to use it to control Mike's lead hand right here. Then he's going to look to time Mike coming in. Now James will jab right here, catch a Mike. Now Mike will drop as that second jab comes. Okay, Mike will jab as James looks to parry and pull. Then a little drop. And more the same, Mike jabs and James will parry and pull. Now here's the interesting part. James will get back to this lead foot as Mike looks to double up that jab. But then James is going to catch and then counter right here. All right, Mike's on the right side of his line. He'll get to his lead foot, leap, then drop. Now, James was concerned about Mike's follow-up rear cross, but nothing came. So this is a good sequence. James is going to step on this lead foot, throw a leaping hook as Mike pulls to his rear foot. Now, James is going to follow up with a rear cross as Mike drops right here. Mike's going to come back with this rear uppercut as James gets stuck on this lead foot. Now, James is trying to get off this lead foot with a hook, right here. And he was able to kick this leg back so he could double up that hook, bring his head to his rear foot. And then Mike follows him back with that overhand. Now Mike will get back to this lead foot, snap off a jab as James pulls right here. Now they'll both drop. And what's interesting is both rear hands are loaded, but instead they both attempt lead hooks. Then James follows up with a rear cross. They'll time each other with their jabs. Now, this is slick by James. Mike thought they were going to be playing the same game, but James changes it up. Instead of jabbing with Mike, he's going to slip inside, catching him with that extended uppercut. Here, James will time Mike's jab right there, and then Mike will double it up as James drops. Then we'll see a little bit of movement here. Okay, here Mike goes high and then low again. Now, he's looking for that spot right here. And notice how James tries to turn that hole closed right here. Now James will look to return that favor by going to the body. And look where he's aiming, right in that hole. Mike will come back going high. And then drop his weight on the right side of his line. Then go to that body. All right, now James will trip up that jab. He'll go high, low, and check out all his weights on that lead foot. Then he'll go back up top. So Mike will come back again going high, and then notice he has no targets when he goes low. Then we have some feints. Next, Mike will get to this lead foot, spring out with a leaping hook, then throw out a jab, and then double it up. Here, Mike will target that body, and what's interesting is the fact that James looks to time him coming in with an uppercut. Now, Mike will fire out his jab as James is posted up over his rear foot, and watch how James immediately fouls him back with this rear cross. And one more thing, just so slick, as Mike pulls from that cross, he looks to catch him coming in with his lead hook or check hook, and then he'll come back with a rear uppercut. And then James will jab right here. And this is our last clip of round one. James is going to step on this lead foot, throw a leaping hook as Mike bobs down off that lead foot right here. Now, Mike's going to weave to his rear foot and then come up with this lead hook. And that should do it for round one. We're going to pick up right where we left off. This is round two of Mike McCallum versus James Toney. All right, let's get into it. So James is going to get to this lead foot and fire off his jab high right here. And it's just to occupy Mike's guard and then commit the jab to the body. And there it is. Now, one thing I want to hone in on, YouTube handle, they call me Gail, brought this up in round one. So check out this down parry from Mike. The concern is, with the down parries, if James fouled up with his rear hand, Mike could be in danger. Now, this frame shows that Mike is aware of that. So check out that lead hand. See how it's covering right here? And we'll turn it live for a second. It's still covering. So if you have a down parry in your game, that's fine. Just know what could be coming next. And hey, they call me Gail. Isn't that crazy timing? Okay, here's another neat sequence. So check out how they're both ready to catch each other's jab right here. Then they're both going to attack on the same beat. And here's the neat part. So Mike's going to counter with his jab high while James chooses to go low right here. Now James will jab as Mike parries. Then James will look to double it up as Mike counters back. And Mike will jab again. All right, James has his head towards his lead foot, and he'll time Mike stepping in right here. So James will go high as Mike looks to parry. Then James drops his weight and then goes to the body. Okay, we'll get something a little different. James is going to get to this lead foot, load, and then spring off with a leaping uppercut. And one thing to note, check out how he places all his weight on his rear foot. Now Mike's on the right side of his line, weights on that rear foot. He's going to lift this lead foot as James jabs. Then he's going to place all his weight there, slip it inside. Now, James is going to double up, looking for the body. Then they're going to punch on the same beat. James will get back to this lead foot. He's going to spring off with a leaping jab. Then he's going to get under this counter from Mike right here. Then Mike's going to push off this rear foot, throw the jab to the body. All right, Mike's going to go to the body, and check out how James tried to escape. And then he's going to counter right back. And then James will catch Mike right here, then go high, parried, and then low, parried. So James really starts to time Mike coming in. So James is posted over that lead foot. Mike's going to push off that rear foot right here. Then James looks low. Okay, James's head is toward that lead foot, and check out this lead hand position. He'll bring it up as Mike drops right here. Then check out again, all his weight's on his lead foot, then rear foot. Then he's going to bring it back to his lead foot right here. Do the exact same thing to snap off that jab. Mike parries and pulls, then he'll drop. Then he's going to push off this rear foot and then fold out that jab. Now they'll time each other with their jabs. Then Mike's going to go ahead and do a triple jab here. James is going to parry this first one, pull the second one, drop that third, then back to that lead foot, and then one more drop for good measure. All right, James is going to bring this rear foot up right here, fire off that jab, catching Mike. Now, Mike's going to come back with a double jab. The first one, James catches right here. Now, the second one puts him in danger because James is going to drop and then come back with a rear cross. Here's the drop, there's the cross. So James is going to bring his weight to his rear foot and then step forward with this lead foot, looking for this hook to the body. Now, Mike's going to catch it, and then James is going to throw his cross, while Mike looks to catch him with this hook right here. Now, what's amazing about these two is they continue through their patterns. Mike will come back with a rear uppercut. James is in a counter with his hook as Mike bobs down off of that lead foot. A little pendulum step here, getting behind James, looking for his hook as James drops down right here. And then another pendulum step. Again, James is posted up near that lead foot. Mike's going to get caught coming in right there. James looks low, and then Mike's going to follow suit with this drop. All right, James is going to get to this lead foot, throw out his leaping jab, and then he's going to catch Mike with this rear cross. Now, Mike's going to post with this lead hand right here, come back with his cross as James drops down. Now, James is going to weave to this lead foot, back to his rear foot. And Mike right here is looking to catch him with his hook as James drops straight down. Now, James is going to come back with his rear cross. Mike pulls, comes back with his uppercut as James bobs down. Now, James is going to look for a lead hook to the body and then look to control Mike right here, but Mike is going to catch him with this lead hook. Now, Mike will jab as James parries and pulls right here. Now, James is going to get back to this lead foot, flick out that jab, follows up with the rear cross, and Mike gets pushed to this rear foot, and he'll come back with his rear uppercut. And then check out how James bobs down. Okay, James will flick out that jab and check out this parry from Mike. Now, Mike's on the right side of his line. He's going to throw out his jab, but he's really looking for this rear hook to the body right here. So Mike will jab as James parries and pulls right here. Then James is going to get back to this lead foot for another parry. All right, James is over that lead foot, and check out his lead hand position. Mike's in a step, firing that jab as James brings it up to meet him right here. Now, James is going to get back to this lead foot, pull as that jab comes, then he's going to drop once Mike throws his rear hook right here. Now, he's going to counter out with his rear uppercut, and then he's going to catch this hook from Mike, and then again, counter out with his own hook. Now, Mike's looking to grab James's waist right here, spin him around, and he's going to come over the top with his rear cross. Okay, Mike snaps out his jab as James pulls and parries. Mike's going to double it up, and James is going to drop right here. Now, check out James is going to get back to this lead foot and that rear hand cover. Fold out that jab, a little bit of movement, looking for the parry. Now right here, James catches Mike square. Check out those shoulders. James will do a little pendulum step, and once he lands, he's going to throw a leaping hook rear cross, and then a little tie up. Now, Mike looks to control right here with his lead, and then he's going to throw his rear hook to the body. All right, here's a nice sequence. So Mike's going to double up his jab, but let's watch James. He's going to go ahead and pull the first one right here. And now his weight's on his rear foot. As the second one comes in, he's going to push off that rear foot and catch Mike right here. Now this time, Mike's going to get to this lead foot first and then beat James on this one with that jab. Okay, James is going to throw his jab rear cross, and Mike's going to pull this jab right here. Now, he's going to use his lead hand to deflect that rear cross, come back with his rear uppercut as James bobs down right here. Now, this position is just a 50-50. Who wants to throw the lead hook first? James is going to initiate by going to the body, then head as Mike bobs down right here. Mike's going to come back with his own hook. James is going to stay down, and then James counters with a hook to the body, then head. Mike will counter out, catch an air. So Mike's going to throw his jab, rear cross, and Mike's going to miss this parry and then get caught by that cross. So ideally, Mike would have liked to caught that jab and then dropped under the cross. But here's the impressive part. Mike will continue with his pattern. He's going to look for his rear uppercut, then jab, rear cross. He's going to get held up here by James, and then he's going to pull away from this rear uppercut and then come back with his own jab. Now Mike's going to double jab, throw his rear cross as James pulls, rolls with that cross. His counter is stifled. He's going to go ahead and catch this hook from Mike, drop under that cross, and he's going to get back to this lead foot right here for his leaping hook. All right, Mike's looking for his lead shot to the body right here. Now James down parries, and not only down parries, but he clamps it to his own lead. Now Mike's going to look for his leaping hook. James is going to catch that right here, and then he's going to pull to his rear foot, rolling with that cross. He's going to come back, get stifled, doesn't catch it. Now check out Mike's control with his lead forearm, and he's going to come out with his own hook. Okay, Mike will jab as James pulls right here. Now Mike's going to double it up, and James is going to parry pull, and then he's going to start the drop on the second one. And again, he's going to continue through that pattern. He's going to get back to this lead foot and check out that rear hand cover. And then we're going to have some movement. So James is going to throw his jab, cross, and Mike's going to pull and then look to drop. So there's the pull, then the drop. And here Mike will jab as James parries and pulls. Then he's going to drop under this follow-up jab right here. Then he's going to shift his weight to his lead foot, slip into third. Then another jab from Mike. Then we're going to go high, low. Now James is posted up over his lead foot. He's going to shift his weight back. Mike's going to fire out that jab as James parries. And again, note James' patterns. He's going to drop right here, then pull, get back to that lead foot, check out that rear hand cover. Then he's going to fire out that jab, pull this counter, and then look for his own counter. All right, James is going to go back to high, occupy Mike's rear glove, and then go low to the body. Then this is the last clip of the round. Mike will jab as James drops. He's going to parry the second jab, and then he's going to pull the third. Now, this is where Mike puts himself in a potential bad position because James is in a counter and come back with his rear cross, but Mike has his next sequence ready, which is a drop. Then Mike's going to come back with a rear hook to the body. James is in a counter with his own hook, and then Mike's going to come back with another hook. Now, this is an accidental knockdown. See how James is wrapping his arm around the back of Mike's head, and Mike goes down. And that should do it for round two. All right, we're going to pick up where we left off. This is round three of Mike McCallum versus James Toney. Let's see what we see. Now, James is going to step on this lead foot, firing out his jab, and getting outside of Mike's counter. Now, James is going to look to double it up and check out that rear hand parry by Mike, and then this drop by James. Okay, James will jab as Mike parries right here. Now they'll fold out their jabs, time each other on the same beat. James will fold out his jab. Mike's going to feint. Then he's going to commit. Check out the pull parry from James, the little drop. And here's an interesting tidbit. Notice James goes from his rear foot to his lead foot. But watch this rear hand control right here with that down parry. Little pendulum step by Mike. And then they'll time each other on the same beat. So James will get to that lead foot, snap out that jab. Mike counters. And then James fires right back. Then we have a little bit of movement. All right, this is an interesting sequence. James is going to snap out his jab, occupying Mike's rear hand right here. Now he's going to commit a jab to the body as Mike looks to counter back with a jab to James's head. Now, Mike's going to stifle this jab to the body with his rear elbow, and James drops, getting under Mike's counter right here. Then we're going to see a pull parry from James. One more. And then the drop. Now this is another cool pattern. James is going to get to this lead foot, throw out his leaping jab. Now he's going to shoot his jab to the body right here where the low guard from Mike creates this hole. Then he's going to push off this rear foot, go back up top as Mike looks to parry. Okay, James will feint his leaping hook as Mike pulls. Now Mike's going to drop his weight, push off this rear foot, shooting the jab to the body, and then they're going to time each other on the same beat. So Mike will go up top and check out this parry pull. Then Mike's going to go to the body, but hone in on James. He's looking to catch Mike with this little hook right here. Next, note the feint and then James's reaction right here. And check out another feint and then the pull from James. And then one more, the pull drop. Now, this is neat. Mike's loaded for a leaping hook, while James's drop gives him access to his rear overhand. So Mike will catch him with this hook, and then James's rear overhand will sail. All right, James will jab as Mike parries and pulls. Then Mike's going to push off this rear foot and counter back. And again, note that parry pull. And we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but notice when James looks to get back from his rear foot to his lead foot, he'll bring that rear hand with him right here. Now, Mike will jab as James drops, and then he'll double it up. Now, James is going to get to his lead foot, spring off with his leaping jab, dropping to the right side of his line, getting under Mike's counter, while looking for the jab to the body. And then a little pendulum step by James. Okay, Mike will push off this rear foot, snapping off his jab as James shifts his weight to his lead foot, slipping inside right here, looking for the lead hook to the body. Then a little pendulum step. So Mike will snap off his jab as James parries and pulls. Then he's going to drop as James gets back to this lead foot. Mike's going to shoot that jab to the body as James looks for his lead counter. All right, Mike's going to get to that lead foot, snap off his jab as James parries and pulls. Now, this was a neat idea by James that didn't quite pan out. Now, Mike's going to go ahead and double up his jab as James looks for his overhand right here. Then Mike will fire off one more jab. Then we'll see a little bit of movement. Now Mike will look to time James as he's coming in with that jab. James will double it up, catch Mike as he pulls. He'll look for that counter, a little more movement. Feint the leaping hook, and then we're going to shoot the jab to the body. Okay, we've seen this pattern a little bit earlier. James is going to leap off that lead foot with his leaping jab, then look for the jab to the body as Mike looks to counter him right here. Now, Mike looks to catch James as he pulls. Then they're going to time each other, and then one more time. So James will go up top, note this catch, then shoot the jab to the body, then go back up top one more time, note that parry. Now, Mike got pushed to his rear foot. His weight is right there, so he has the ability to shoot off his jab, catching James. James now pushed to his rear foot, is going to come back with a rear cross to the body right here, and then Mike is going to try to catch him with his jab. And then James folds out that jab. Mike pushes off this rear foot and catches James one more time. All right, Mike's going to snap off this jab as James parries and pulls right here. Mike will double it up as James drops. Now, this is neat. So James, all his weight is on his rear foot. He's stepping this lead foot back and out. And he's going to shift his weight to his lead foot right here. Then he's going to pull this rear foot back and then transition his weight to his rear foot. Now, Mike's going to fire off a jab, catch James, and then James will look for a jab to the body. Now, James is going to snap off his jab or cross, but let's hone in on Mike. His head's over his lead foot. He's going to step this rear foot back, pulling to his rear foot. Now, note the rear foot is pointing towards James. Then he's throwing his rear cross right here. And then Mike will bob down as James looks for a lead hook to the body. Okay, Mike will fire off his jab and check out this rear hand parry from James. James will look to counter as Mike pulls. And then Mike's going to come back with his hook as James drops right here, coming back with his rear hook to the body. So Mike's going to get to his lead foot, throw out his leaping jab, then look for the jab to the body. Now James is going to counter back with his own jab as Mike slips inside right here, looking for that lead hook to the body. Now James is going to counter out with his own hook, and then Mike's going to bob down on this lead foot, and then Mike will double up with his jab. All right, Mike will jab as James parries and pulls right here. Then he's going to go ahead and drop. Now, Mike's going to follow up with a jab cross, and James is going to pull to his rear foot, and then back to that lead foot, and check out that rear hand cover. Now, Mike will jab as James parries and drops. He'll come back firing his own jab. Then they're going to look to time each other. Okay, this is neat, just the idea. So Mike will jab and James will slip into his lead foot right here. So he went from his rear foot to his lead foot. Now with James on his lead foot, Mike will jab again and James is going to pull to his rear foot. He's going to step forward here, getting under the third jab, dropping right here. Now, the next one he's going to pull, so that's the fourth one. And then he's going to shift his weight from his rear foot to his lead foot, getting under the fifth jab. So James will jab as Mike parries and pulls. Then Mike, being on that rear foot, is going to counter back at James. And then James is going to get back to this lead foot, looking for his lead uppercut. All right, James will snap off his jab, catch a Mike on the bounce. See some movement, a little bit of feints. James will throw his jab cross as Mike catches that jab, but then gets caught by this cross. James will bob down right here off that lead foot. Check out this rear hand cover. Then he's going to drop under this jab. Looks for his hook cross as Mike drops. Next, they'll look to time each other. Flick out that jab, little parry by Mike. Now Mike will throw out his jab cross as James catches that jab, pulls the cross. Now James is looking to get off his rear uppercut right here. He's going to catch this hook from Mike and then counter out with his own hook. Then another jab from Mike as James pulls. Okay, James will jab, check out this parry. Then we're going to see some movement. So Mike will get to his lead foot, fire out his double jab as James parries and pulls, then drops. Now Mike will time James to the body. All right, James will jab as Mike slips in, bringing his right with him, catching James as he drops right here. Now let's go ahead and zero in on Mike. He's on his rear foot, James will jab, and Mike's going to slip into this lead foot right here, and then they're going to time each other. Now Mike's head's over his lead foot. He'll jab as James pulls. Now they're both going to drop, but Mike's going to push off his rear foot and fire out that jab. Okay, James got to that lead foot. He's going to shift his weight to his rear foot, throw his jab, cross. Now Mike's going to pull that jab and then get caught by this cross. He's going to come back with his rear uppercut and note the pull from James. James is going to counter back with his own rear hook. And one thing to notice, James currently is in a southpaw stance. He's going to double up with a rear uppercut, then rear hook, shift, and then a little control. So James will jab, note the parry, and then counter. Mike will feint and then commit as James pulls, then drops. Then they're going to time each other. All right, James will jab, occupying Mike's rear hand right here, then slip inside, looking for that lead hook to the body. Then Mike will jab as James pulls. Now Mike's over his lead foot. He's going to shift to the right side of his line, pushing off his rear foot, throwing this jab to the body. Check out that rear hand parry by James. Now Mike's going to get back to that lead foot, throw out his leaping hook as James pulls. And then we'll have a couple feints, a couple pendulum steps. Okay, James will jab as Mike parries and pulls. Then Mike's going to jab right here, and James is going to catch him with this lead hook. And that'll do it for round 3. All right, back at it. This is round 4 of Mike McCallum versus James Toney. Let's see what types of patterns they do. Okay, Mike will shoot his jab to the body as James down parries right here. Now James is going to get to this lead foot, fire off his jab as Mike parries, returning the favor. So James will look to control Mike's lead hand right here. Then on the very next beat, Mike will snap off his jab. And one thing to note, check out how his rear hand's ready to catch. And then we're going to see James double it up. All right, James is going to step on this lead foot, throw his leaping hook as Mike drops. Now Mike's going to pull as James follows up with a rear uppercut, lead hook, rear cross. Now Mike's going to push off this rear foot, looking to counter, firing off his jab as James pulls, then drops. Okay, James will shift from the right side of his line to his lead foot as Mike catches him with his jab right here. Now James will counter and check out this rear parry by Mike. Then they're going to go ahead and time each other. Then James is going to shoot this jab to the body. Now James will fold out his jab, note the flared elbow as Mike parries and pulls. Then James doubles it up, going to the body. So this is a long sequence. Mike's going to snap off his jab as James pulls right here. Now James pushes off this rear foot, throws his hook. And then we're going to see Mike right here feint his hook. And then he's going to go ahead and throw his jab cross as James catches and then pulls. Now note, Mike's head's over his lead foot, and James is going to get back to his lead foot to throw his hook, and then we're going to see Mike weave to his rear foot. Now, James is going to follow him back with a jab cross right here. Mike's going to get back to his lead foot, fire off that jab as James drops, and then he's going to throw this overhand right here. Now, Mike looks to counter with his rear uppercut, and then he's going to weave under this potential hook from James. Then a little bit of movement. We have a feint. All right, Mike's going to fire off this jab as James parries and pulls. Then they're going to attack each other on the same beat. James is going to go to the head, but Mike is going to go to the body right here. Little pendulum step by Mike. Okay, Mike's going to get to this lead foot and triple up his jab, but let's hone in on James. First, note this parry, then the drop, and then the slip into that lead foot. And then some feints. Now James is going to fold out his jab, looking to go high, then to the body. So this is a nice little setup by Mike. Heads over that lead foot. James again is going to fold out that jab as Mike drops right here. Now Mike's going to come back with his overhand, and in turn, James is going to drop and counter with his cross. Then we got some movement. All right, Mike will jab as James pulls right here. Now James is going to return the favor and note the pull by Mike. Now this is neat. Mike's going to feint, but let's hone in on James and his patterns. He's going to pull, then drop, and then bring his head back over his lead foot. So here's the pull, there's the drop, and then back to that lead foot. He's going to shoot his jab to Mike's body. Mike's going to catch it on his lead foot and then counter back with his own lead right here. And then he's going to double it up as James pulls. Then James is going to slip inside as that third jab comes, looking for his lead cross. Okay, Mike's head's over his lead foot. He's going to snap off this jab as James parries and pulls. Then we're going to flip the script. James counters with this lead as Mike pulls. And then one more time, notice James's head is over his lead foot. He's looking to pull as Mike snaps off his jab right here. And then we'll have some movement. Now James is going to step on this lead foot and snap off his jab as Mike slips inside right here. Now Mike looks to bob down off that lead foot, potentially weaving to his rear foot, but James catches him with this short right as Mike gets stuck on that lead foot. And again, a little bit of movement. So James will push off this rear foot, throwing his lead hook as Mike pulls right here. Now, let's hone in on Mike. Notice he kept his shoulders squared after he pulled, which allows him to follow up with this lead hook, then rear hook. Then they'll reset. All right, Mike will do this nice feint and check out James' reaction. Then he's going to commit his lead as James looks to pull right here. Now, James is on his rear foot, and then he's going to move to his lead foot, and then check out this jab by Mike, and also, more importantly, this rear hand cover by James. Okay, they'll look to time each other right here. Now, James is going to follow up with this rear cross as Mike looks to pull. Then we'll see a little bit of movement. Now Mike will catch James as James looks to step on his lead foot right here. And then he's going to pull the counter back from James. So Mike's going to snap off his jab as James parries and pulls right here. Now, James is going to feint his rear hand to get to this lead foot so he could throw his leaping hook. Then we're going to see Mike pull right here. Then he'll pendulum away. All right, Mike's going to shoot his jab to the body right here and check out that small window where he connects. He's going to go ahead and double it up as James moves to this lead foot and check out that rear hand cover by James. Now they're going to play some jab games. Mike's going to go high and then check out that parry by James. And James is going to counter back with his own lead, connecting on Mike. Now they're going to finish it up, looking to time each other. Mike is going to go up top while James decides to go to the body. And Mike's going to return the favor. Note this down parry by James. James is going to catch Mike with his jab right here. Now, Mike's going to come back and snap off 4 jabs. And we're going to notice, or we're going to watch how James handles him. First, he's going to drop, pull, drop. Then he's going to get to this lead foot. And again, note this rear hand cover right here. Okay, James is going to throw his jab cross as Mike pushes off this lead foot to avoid the jab. Then he's going to pull or roll with that rear cross. And then another reset. So James is going to throw a jab cross, but Mike's going to handle it a bit differently this time. First, he's going to parry that jab, and then he's going to pull to his rear foot, rolling with that rear cross, which sets up his rear hand counter. Then a little bit of movement. All right, this is neat to see. Check out how a feint puts James out of position. So James's head is over his lead foot. Mike's in a feint right here. And now check it out. James's head is over his rear foot. So all Mike has to do is follow him back with his jab, which he does. Now, Mike's going to follow up with a rear cross as James drops. And then James is going to look to counter with this rear uppercut. And then Mike will continue the sequence weaving to his rear foot. Now James is going to fire out his jab, catch a Mike right here. Now Mike's going to target this hole that the low guard creates, going right to the body there. Okay, here we go. This is one of the first clips I ever made on YouTube. It's horrible. If you want something to laugh at, go to one of my first posts and be clear. The clip is amazing. It's just my narration is horrific. So they're going to time each other right here. Mike's going to double it up and then triple it up as James drops. Now, James is going to counter back with his overhand right here. And what's so impressive about these two is they continue through their sequences. Mike's going to counter back with his cross as James pulls to his rear foot, rolling with that cross. Now James is going to counter back with his own cross, and check out how Mike bobs down, getting right underneath it. Now Mike's going to go ahead and weave to his rear foot right here as James tracks with this uppercut, and then James is going to throw his overhand right there. Now they're going to go ahead and trade. Mike's going to trade his jab for James's lead hook. And James will get to this lead foot, throwing his lead hook as Mike pulls. Then we're going to see James drop because he was expecting a rear hand counter from Mike. Now, James is going to get back to his rear foot, throw out this hook, then rear cross, as Mike looks to catch that hook and then bob under that rear cross. Now Mike's going to flick out his jab as James pulls, then drops. Now Mike's looking to spin James around right here, throw this overhand, and then this lead hook, and check out this rear hand cover by James. Now James is going to catch that hook and then come over with his overhand as Mike pulls. So Mike will double up his jab as James pulls, then drops. Now, this is a nice change by Mike. James's pattern has been pull, drop, and then get back to that lead foot with a rear hand cover when Mike throws his triple jab. Well, instead, this time he decides to throw his rear cross right here, catching James, and then Mike's going to bob down over that lead foot, weave to his rear foot right here, throw his lead hook, then rear straight. All right, Mike will try that pattern again, double jab, rear cross, but let's hone in on James. He'll pull and drop, but this time he won't shift his head back to his lead foot. Instead, he continues to rotate towards his rear foot, and he's going to counter back with this uppercut right here. And now check out how he catches this hook from Mike with that rear hand cover. Then he's going to counter out with his own hook. And check out how Mike, he has his own cover in place, which is on point. Now Mike will snap off his jab as James pulls. Then he's going to go ahead and double it up, and note the drop by James right here. Now James is going to come back with his overhand as Mike pulls. Then Mike's going to come back with his rear uppercut, and check out how James bobs down over that lead foot. Okay, Mike's going to get to this lead foot, throw out his jab as James pulls, and now they're both going to drop right here. James is going to come back with his rear uppercut as Mike pulls. Mike will double up his jab as James pulls, then drops, then back to that lead foot, and again, notice this rear hand cover. So James will snap off this jab as Mike slips in towards his lead foot right here. All right, Mike's going to spring off this lead foot, firing out his jab as James pulls right here. Now, Mike's momentum allows him to drop on the right side of his line. James is going to get to this lead foot, and check out this rear hand cover as Mike throws his lead hook here. Now, they're going to go ahead and time each other. Mike's going to throw his jab cross as James pulls and comes back with his own cross on the same beat. Now Mike's going to weave to his rear foot, snap off his jab as James looks to time him with this overhand right here. James is going to look for his leaping hook as Mike throws his rear cross. Then we're going to see James follow up with a rear cross as Mike drops down right here. Now Mike will snap off his jab as James pulls to his rear foot right here. Then James is going to drop and then come back with his rear hook as Mike pulls right there. Okay, Mike is going to throw out some jabs as James parries, then pulls, then drops right here. Then we're going to see a little bit of movement. So James will fire off his jab as Mike pulls. All right, Mike will throw his jab cross as James pulls, then drops, and then he's going to counter back with his uppercut. Now Mike's going to pendulum, come back with his rear cross, and then bob under James's rear hand counter. Now this is a nice setup. Mike's going to feint his jab as James pulls. Then Mike's going to go to the body with this lead right here. Now, since James is on his rear foot, James could come back with his overhand right there. And here's the final clip of the round. We're going to see James drop as Mike looks for his rear hook right here. Now Mike's looking to keep James on his back foot, so he's going to go ahead and throw out his jab as James drops again. Then we're going to see this a second time, but this time we're going to see James come back with his overhand right here. Now Mike looks to counter with his rear hand. James will spin around and throw his rear uppercut as Mike gets pushed to his rear foot and comes back with his own jab. Now, once again, James comes back with his overhand right here, then looks to weave to this rear foot. Check out this lead hand control from Mike, and then his rear cross, and then we're going to see James counter back with his own rear hand. And that will do it for round 4. Let's check out round 5 of Mike McCallum versus James Toney. I believe we're going to see a couple new patterns this round, so yeah, let's get into it. Okay, Mike's going to snap off his jab, and we're going to see James parry and pull. Now Mike resets. He's going to double up his jab, and we're going to see James parry and pull, but then he's going to add a drop right there. Now, James is going to get back to this lead foot and check out this rear hand cover. Now, this is interesting. James is going to jab, but check out this lead hand down parry by Mike right there. And then we're going to see that again. Check out, again, that lead hand down parry. Then James is going to look for that body. So Mike's going to fire out this jab, and we're going to see James parry right there. Then Mike's going to look for the body and check out that down parry by James. All right, James is going to fold out his jab, and again, we're going to see this lead hand down parry by Mike. And one more thing to hone in on, check out how Mike keeps his rear hand in play. Then we'll see some feints. Okay, this is a neat sequence. So James is going to snap off his jab as Mike slips in looking for this lead hook to the body. Now, what's neat is the fact that James read it and is shifting his weight back towards his lead foot. Now, James is going to reset, throw out his jab as Mike parries and pulls. Now, James is going to follow up with his rear cross, and Mike catches him coming in with his lead. Then he's going to follow up with this rear cross as James gets stuck on that lead foot. Now, James is going to fold out his jab as Mike pulls. Now, James was looking to set up this lead hook to the body, but we'll see Mike pendulum off his rear foot away from James. Then we're going to see a jab by James right here. So Mike's going to snap off this jab as James parries and pulls. Now he's going to look to double it up, and check out how James looks to get back to that lead foot right here. And note this rear hand cover. And then we're going to see one more jab by Mike. All right, James is going to fold out his jab as Mike parries and pulls. Now Mike's going to come back looking for the body and check out that down parry by James. Now Mike's going to go up top right here. And then one more time, we're going to see this lead hand parry by Mike. And then we get some movement. Okay, James will jab as Mike pulls. And Mike will feint right here. Now, Mike's going to look for the body right above James's low guard and catch him there. A couple more feints, some movement. Now, this is a neat sequence. James is going to throw his jab, rear cross, as Mike slips in and looks to throw his lead hook. So the first beat is this jab and Mike slipping in. And the second beat will be the rear cross from James, and Mike will throw his lead hook, or rather check hook. Now the question is who's going to transition quicker, or rather, who wins the race? And the answer is James. Now, Mike's going to go ahead and fold out this jab as James pulls to his rear foot and comes back with his rear cross, and we're going to see Mike drop straight down. Now, Mike's going to come back with this rear hook, and then we're going to see James drop right here. And this is cool to see. They're both concerned about each other's counters, and then they both drop. So James and Mike are going to throw their jabs on the same beat, and what's interesting is how they defend each other's jabs. James is going to slip outside, putting himself on the right side of his line, and there's a reason for this, while Mike catches it with his head over that lead foot. And the reason for James slipping to the outside is because he's looking to follow up with his rear cross, while because Mike's head is over that lead foot, he'll have somewhere to pull, which is his rear foot, to avoid that rear cross. All right, Mike will jab as James parries and pulls, and then Mike's going to double it up and check out this drop by James. And then finally, here comes the triple jab, and note how James gets back to this lead foot, and then he'll have that parry right there. Then we're going to restart the sequence, another parry pull, and then one more for good measure. We'll have some movement. James will try to catch Mike crossing the line right there. Okay, Mike will jab as James parries and pulls. And then James is going to throw his jab, rear cross, as Mike pulls, then drops. And then we'll have a tie-up, then a break. Now, Mike's looking for this little hole that the low guard creates, but James will close it up with his down parry. Now, Mike's going to go ahead and get to this lead foot right here, and then he's going to throw his leaping hook, rear cross, and we're going to see James pull, then drop. And then we're going to have another tie up. They'll break themselves. So Mike's looking for that body shot again, and we'll see another down parry by James. And then we'll get some feints. More movement. All right, this is another fun sequence. Mike's going to throw out his jab, baiting over his lead foot. Now, James is going to counter his lead as Mike pulls to his rear foot. And then he's going to push off this rear foot, catching James with this jab. And then he's going to double it up, catching him a second time. But let's hone in on James. He's going to weave from this lead foot to his rear foot right here. Then he's going to take a big step with this lead foot to throw his rear cross. Mike will pull and then come back with his own rear straight. Okay, James is going to snap out his jab as Mike begins to pendulum to his right. Now he's going to shift his weight to his left foot right here, throwing his leaping hook. And note the pull by James. James is going to throw his rear hand as Mike pulls. And then we're going to see Mike pendulum to the left, hitting the brakes in his orthodox stance, pulling from James's leaping hook. James will throw out a jab right here, and Mike will move to the left, catching James with his own. Now they'll time each other on the same beat, and then Mike's going to double it up as James parries, then parries and pulls. So James will jab high and note the pull by Mike, then jab to the body. Then James is going to fire out his jab as Mike pulls. All right, Mike's going to go to the body and check out the spot. It's right above that low lead hand. Now, Mike's going to get to this lead foot, snap out his jab as James drops, and he's going to come back with this overhand, and we'll see Mike drop as well. Another tie up. They'll both drop right here. Some feints. Okay, James will jab high, then low as Mike pulls. Then he's going to spring off this rear foot to pendulum away. Mike will fire off his jab as James parries and pulls. We'll see some feints and movement. Now James will push off this rear foot, lift his lead, and snap off his jab as Mike pulls. Now Mike's going to counter the same deal, pushing off this rear foot, folding out two jabs as James pulls, then drops. He'll look for his rear cross as Mike pulls to his rear foot. And then James is going to get back to this lead foot right here to throw his leaping uppercut. So Mike's going to fold out his jab, and he's going to drop under James's lead hand counter. And this is pretty neat. James is going to follow up with his rear cross, and Mike's going to leap off this rear foot a second time, getting underneath. Now, Mike's going to go to the body right here and check out the down parry by James. All right, this is another fun one. Mike is going to jab as James pulls. Then Mike's going to double it up, and we're going to see James drop. Now, James is going to come back with his uppercut, then lead hook, and note the pull by Mike. Mike's going to jab as James pulls, then drops. Now, Mike's going to start attacking James on this back foot. He'll jab as James parries. Mike's going to look to double it up, and James drops. And he's going to come back with his overhand. And then we'll see some pendulum steps by James, and then a jab, and then another pendulum step. Okay, Mike will catch James with his jab, and then he's going to look to double it up as James drops. Now, James will come back with his overhand as Mike pulls, and then he's going to look to counter with his own uppercut. Then we'll have a tie-up, a break. We'll get some movement. And that's the end of round 5. All right, let's keep this train moving. This is round 6 of Mike McCallum versus James Toney. Okay, James will go to the body. Then he's going to double it up as Mike looks for his lead counter. So James will go to the body as Mike looks to parry. Now Mike's going to drop just in case that rear cross should come. Then he's going to go ahead and start circling to his left, snapping off his jab. Note the parry pull by James. Mike will double it up and then triple it up, and check out that drop. Now James will jab and check out this parry by Mike. James will double it up, looking for that body. All right, we're going to have a replay. James will jab again and check out that parry by Mike. Now, James is going to double it up, shooting his jab just above Mike's low guard as Mike looks for his lead counter. Okay, James is going to do a rear foot step up, throw in his lead hook, but let's hone in on Mike. He'll punch with James snapping off his jab. Then James is going to follow up with his rear cross as Mike pulls to his rear foot. And then they're going to fire off jabs on the same beat. So James is going to look for the body, but let's check out Mike. His head is over that lead foot. His shoulders are square. He's going to jab with James, catching him coming in. And then one thing to note about James, check out his rear hand, how active he's with it. Now James is going to fire off his jab, catch a Mike as he looks to slip in. And James is going to follow up what looks like a lead hook to the body, then some movement and a drop. All right, they'll snap off their jabs on the same beat. James will catch Mike getting stuck on that lead foot, follow up with this rear cross, and Mike's going to return the favor as James gets stuck on his lead foot, catching him with this counter jab. And then Mike will double jab here as James parries, pulls, then drops. Okay, Mike will look for his lead to the body as James catches him coming in. So again, they were punching on the same beat. Then we have some movement. So James will jab as Mike parries. Then he's going to jab again to the body, and we're going to see Mike look for his lead counter. And then we're going to have another jab and parry by Mike. And now Mike's going to feint right here, then commit that jab as James pulls. Now Mike will jab as James looks for his parry. Then Mike's going to double it up and note the pull by James. Now James is going to come back with his own jab and note the pull by Mike. And then the second time, Mike's going to parry and pull. And then James is going to go high, then low. All right, they'll attack each other on the same beat and check out that parry by Mike. Mike's going to go ahead and snap off a jab. We're going to see James pull. And then again, they'll go on the same beat. Okay, this is a neat sequence. James will catch Mike with his lead. Mike will counter as James pulls. And then Mike's going to look to double it up. And James is going to catch him coming in with his lead right here. And then he's going to follow up with his rear cross. Now, what's incredible about these two is they continue their patterns even when getting cracked. So Mike's going to push off this rear foot, fire out his jab as James pulls. And then he's going to follow up with his rear cross. And we're going to see James drop right here. Little tie up. Mike will shoot out that jab as James drops. And then James is going to come back looking for his rear hook. So James will jab as Mike parries and pulls. Then we'll see some movement. Mike will initiate the jab as James counters, catches him coming in. Again, some more movement. James will look for the body here. And then James will jab again as Mike parries and pulls. Now James will jab as Mike pulls. Mike will look for his lead counter. Then Mike's going to go ahead and double it up here and note the pull, then drop by James. All right, so Mike's going to look for the body with his lead as James drops. And now this is slick. Mike's going to show that same look and notice James looking for his rear hand parry. But then we're going to see Mike go up top. Okay, it's always interesting to see James go in his high guard, but here we have it. Now Mike's going to go ahead and snap off that jab as James blocks it on that lead foot. Now Mike's going to go ahead and start circling left, doubling up his jab as James sits on his rear foot. And now James is going to push off this rear foot, lift his lead, throw his jab cross. But let's hone in on Mike. He's going to go ahead and catch this jab. And instead of just pulling and rolling with the cross to his rear foot, he's going to look to bring his lead hook with him and then follow up with his rear hook. And then Mike is going to go ahead and jab, and then we're going to see him drop. And then right here, we're going to have a shoulder bump. So this is super slick. James will jab as Mike kicks his rear foot back, shifting his weight over his lead foot, slipping inside. Then he's going to go ahead and swim his right over the top. then leap off this lead foot with a jab cross. And now James, because he's on his rear foot, will counter back with his rear uppercut as Mike gets stuck on his lead foot. And then Mike's going to go ahead and counter back and snap off these two jabs. Now James will pendulum as Mike flicks out this jab, and then note the drop by James as Mike doubles it up. Now Mike's going to catch James as he gets stuck on this rear foot. Again, he'll double it up and note the drop by James. All right, here's another neat sequence. James will jab as Mike pulls. And one thing to hone in on, note how Mike kept his shoulders square. That's important because it allows him to throw his lead hand hook, or rather, check hook. Then some movement. Okay, Mike will throw this jab as James parries in his high guard. Okay, this is cool. So we saw this a little bit earlier. James will jab as Mike kicks this rear foot back, slipping inside, looking for his pull counter. Now, this time, James is going to follow up with this rear cross. So they're throwing on the same beat. So the question is, who wins this race? And it's James as Mike catches air. And now they're both of their lead foot right here, and James is going to throw a lead hook to the body. So James will throw his jab rear cross as Mike catches that jab. Now Mike's head is towards his lead foot. He's going to pull and roll with this cross, and check out how Mike brings that rear hand with him. Now James is going to take a big step, push off this rear foot, and throw his leaping hook. And let's go down the rabbit hole here for a second. Mike is rolling with this hook towards his lead foot. He has his rear hand cover right here, but that's James' intention. The hook is to get Mike to that lead foot so he could follow up with this rear cross. Now Mike has options. He can pull and roll with this rear cross towards his rear foot, or even better yet, he could pull rolling with it and then bring this check hook with him. Or another idea, he could just drop straight down getting under that cross. So what happens? James catches him. Mike looks to follow him back right here. Then James is going to throw another hook, and you can see Mike pulling. Then he'll drop, and then we're going to see a little bump. Now Mike will jab as James looks to parry and pull. Then they'll both drop. Then a little pendulum by James, and then some movement. All right, James will throw his jab rear cross as Mike parries and then pulls. And notice again how Mike brings that rear hand with him. Mike will jab as James parries and pulls. Then he's going to go ahead and double it up, catching James, and then triple it up as James gets stuck on that rear foot. And then check out this rear hand cover by James. And then he's going to block this jab to the body. Then Michael throws jab rear cross as James pulls and comes back with this rear uppercut. And then lead hook as Mike bobs down over that lead foot. Michael looked to follow him back with a jab rear cross as James drops. So they'll look to time each other, and Mike catches James. Then Mike's going to jab as James parries and pulls. Then Mike's going to go to the body here. And again, he's looking for that hold just above James's low lead hand. Then we're just going to have a little bit of movement. Okay, James will jab as Mike parries and pulls. Then Mike's going to feint, and we're going to see James pull, then drop. Now James will jab as Mike parries and pulls. He'll return his lead, catching James right here. Then Mike's going to jab one more time, and we're going to see that parry pull, and then James will drop. All right, James will jab, and check out this rear hand parry by Mike. Now, Mike's going to look to corral James with this lead hook and then follow up with a rear cross. And we're going to see James pull, then drop. Now, James is going to come back with this rear straight, and then he's going to look for a hook as Mike drops straight down. Now, Mike's going to go ahead and snap out his jab as James pulls. And then we're going to reverse this. James is going to snap out his jab, and we're going to see Mike pull. So Mike's going to snap off his jab on this lead foot as James drops. Now, James is going to counter with his rear cross, and we're going to see Mike pull. And then Mike's going to counter the counter with his rear uppercut as James gets stuck on this lead foot. Then we're going to have a tie up, a push off, fold out a jab, and again. Okay, this is neat. James will jab as Mike slips in. Now, James is going to follow up with a rear cross as Mike pulls to his rear foot, bring his lead hook with him. Then he's going to follow up with this rear uppercut as James gets stuck on that lead foot. Then he's going to throw this lead to the body and get caught with the rear uppercut from James. Mike will counter with a rear hook to the body, then pulls from James's lead hook. Then finally, Mike's going to snap off a jab, then drop. Now, this is the last clip of the round. James is going to fold out his jab, and Mike's going to look to counter right here with his lead as James pulls. Mike's going to go high as James parries, then he's going to shoot to the body. James will fold out his jab, little pendulum step here, and then one more time as Mike pulls. Mike will double it up as James pulls then drops. And that will do it for round 6. Okay, back at it. This is round 7 of Mike McCallum versus James Toney. All right, James is going to swing his rear foot behind him right here. Then he's going to push off that rear foot and snap out a jab. And note this rear hand parry by Mike. James will double it up looking for the body. And then, okay, right. So Mike's going to go start penduluming to his left, and James is going to catch him square with his lead. So this is a good view. First, let's hone in on Mike. His shoulders are square, head over that lead foot, and he's going to snap off a jab. And now let's flip and look at James. You'll see a similar look. We got the square shoulders, head near that lead foot, but James has shifted more of his weight over his lead foot, loading it to throw a leaping hook. And let's stop right here. Mike snapped out that jab, and here comes that leaping hook as Mike pulls. And then next, James will flick out a jab as Mike pulls. Now Mike will fold out this jab as James parries, and notice James kept his head over his lead foot, and he'll fire out this lead counter as Mike parries and pulls. And then we'll get some movement. Okay, Mike will jab as James parries and pulls. Then he's going to push off this rear foot and fire out a jab. And then they're going to punch on the same beat, James going to the body while Mike was looking up top. Now James is going to get back to this lead foot right here and then snap off this jab, pushing Mike to his rear foot, who will fold out his own jab. All right, James is going to shift his weight over this lead foot, throw a leaping jab, and then go to his body with his lead. And note that parried pull by Mike. Then James will do a little pendulum. So this is neat. James is going to step on this lead foot, loading it to throw this leaping hook. And check out that rear hand cover by Mike. But this hook is just to keep Mike over that lead foot, so it's right in line with James's rear cross. Now, Mike's going to try to pull away from this rear cross and potentially bring this lead or check hook with him. Now, Mike will jab, and we'll see James timing him, coming in with his lead. And then Mike's going to snap out another jab, and James is going to pull and then come back with this rear cross. And note the drop by Mike. And this is neat, too. Mike is stuck in this waist bend position. But note this lead arm. See how it pops out? And he's going to wrap it around James and then pull him across his body. Okay, James will jab, and we'll see Mike parry and pull. Mike will catch James with his lead, and then we're going to see James double up his jab. But let's hone in on Mike. He's going to look to parry this first one right here, and the second one, he's looking to catch it and then counter out with his lead. Then they'll punch on the same beat. All right, I like this pattern. Mike will jab as James parries and pulls. Now, that jab from Mike is just to occupy James's rear hand so he could set up this lead hook to the body. And then we're going to see James decide to get under it. Now, Mike's going to fire off a jab, and we're going to see James slip inside. So James is going to snap off this jab and check out the lead counter by Mike. And then James is going to jab and note the rear hand parry by Mike. And then Mike's going to double up his jab, and we're going to see James pull, then drop. And then he's going to counter out with his rear uppercut and lead hook. And then Mike is looking to catch this hook and then counter out with his own hook. Now Mike's going to fire off a jab and drop as James parries and pulls. Then Mike's going to double it up, and we're going to see James pull, then drop. And then Mike's going to follow up with this lead hook, and then James is going to catch Mike with his lead. Then we're going to get some movement. Okay, James will snap off his jab as Mike drops, and then he's going to do it a second time, but this time Mike's going to go ahead and parry and then counter out with his lead, and then note this parry pull by James. And then he's going to go ahead and fold out a jab right here. And now James is going to step to his lead foot and catch Mike with his jab right there, and then Mike comes back with his counter jab, and note that parry pull by James. All right, James will jab as Mike parries. Then he's going to counter with his lead, and we're going to see James pull. Okay, now, right now, Mike's going to start circling to his left. First, he's going to feint, and then he'll double jab. But let's hone in on James. First, he's going to look to parry that feint right there. And then he's going to pull that jab, and then he's going to drop the second jab. So James will jab as Mike parries and pulls. Then he's going to counter back with this lead as James pulls. Then again, James will jab, and we're going to see Mike pull. And then one more time, we're going to see that counter with his lead. Now James will jab, and we're going to see Mike pull. Okay, James will throw his jab as Mike parries. And so we're going to find ourselves in a race. James is going to follow up with his rear cross, and Mike's going to look for his check hook. So they'll be both punching on the same beat. So what happens? Well, James transitions quicker from his jab to his rear cross than Mike transitioning from his parry to his hook. And then we'll have a little tie up, a break, little movement. All right, this is an interesting sequence. So Mike's going to drop, and James is going to look for his rear hand parry. Now James is going to follow Mike down with his jab as Mike pendulums off his rear foot. Now right here, Mike's off the ground, and James is going to follow him back with this rear cross. And what's nice about Mike is he always brings this rear hand with him. Now Mike's on his rear foot, and he's going to counter back with this overhand as James pulls to his rear foot. And then James is going to come back with his rear hand. And then right here, Mike threw his hook, and James caught it on that lead foot. And then he's going to weave back to his rear foot. And then Mike comes back with this hook to the body. Now, James is going to catch him with this cross. And then Mike's going to get back to this lead foot, looking for his lead hook to the body, while James will get back to his lead foot and try to time him with a hook to the head. So James will jab as Mike parries and pulls. Then we'll have a little bit of movement. Now Mike will jab as James parries and pulls. And then Mike's going to double it up, and we're going to see James drop. And then he's going to pop back up and then drop again, getting under that third jab. And then right here, he's just going to fire out his own. Okay, James will throw his jab rear cross as Mike parries, then drops. So here's the parry. There's the drop. Then we'll have a tie up and a break. All right, this is a fun sequence. Mike's going to jab, and we're going to see James parry and pull. Now, Mike's going to follow up with a combination. He's going to throw a rear hook to the body, then lead hook to the body. And right here, this releases James' catch and counter hook, but Mike will bob down over that lead foot, getting under it. And now James is going to get back to this lead foot to throw his leaping jab rear cross. But let's hone in on Mike. First, note the parry right there. And then here comes that rear cross, and check out this rear hand. Mike's always bringing that rear hand with him when he pulls. Now, Mike's going to look for his rear hand counter as James bobs over that lead foot right there. And then I love this. James is going to turn his shoulders so they're both southpaw right here. And then James will follow up with this rear hook. So Mike will jab as James parries and pulls. Then he's going to follow up with this rear cross, and we're going to see James drop. And then one thing to note, check out that rear hand cover by James. Unfortunately, he releases it too soon because Mike's going to get his hook through right here. Now, it was a good idea because James could have caught that hook and then countered out with his own hook right here. Now, Mike will jab, catching James as he pulls. Then he's going to double it up, and then we're going to see James drop right here. And now, James is going to get back to this lead foot and check out the cover as Mike throws this lead hook. Now, James is going to drop and then throw his rear cross, and we're going to see Mike pull. And then Mike's going to come back with his rear hand. And then this is what I like. So we're going to see, instead of Mike pulling to his rear foot, because James is going to throw this rear cross, he decides to bob down over his lead foot right here. And check out the cover by James as Mike throws this hook. And then he's going to look for this uppercut and hook to the body, uppercut, then a tie-up and a break. Okay, Mike will throw a jab, rear hook to the body as James parries and pulls, then drops. Then we're going to see James come back with this hook right here. Then he's going to get backed up to the ropes. Now we're going to see a rear uppercut from James and a hook. And we're going to see Mike pull, then drop. Right there. Now Mike comes back with this rear cross as James drops. And then we're going to see James drop again right here. And then he's going to pivot off this lead foot. And Mike's going to catch him with this lead hook. All right, James will snap off his jab as Mike parries and pulls. Then Mike's going to jab, and we're going to see James pull. And then right here, now Mike's going to feint this rear hand, and we're going to see James pull the trigger. So check out the forearm control. He's going to release, looking for his hook as James drops. And then James is going to come back with this rear cross. And again, note Mike's rear hand, how he brings it with him. Mike's going to follow up, trying to control James with his lead. James will drop, and then we're going to see Mike follow up with his rear cross. And then right here, James hooks out, and then note this rear hand cover by James, and we're going to see that hook from Mike, and then again, James will hook out. Now, Mike pulled, and if you noted, he had rear hand cover just in case. Then Mike's going to look for this hook to the body. We'll have a little break. Then Mike's going to throw his rear cross, lead hook, as James pulls and drops. And then Mike's going to look for the body again, right here, and then go up top, and then James counters. Now Mike will jab as James parries and pulls. Then we get some movement. Now Mike's going to double up his jab as James parries and pulls, then drops. And then he's going to counter out with his cross. All right, James will throw his jab, rear cross, and we're going to see Mike pull. And then check out how Mike uses his rear hand to block that rear cross by James. Now, Mike's going to look to counter with throwing his rear cross. And if you notice, he's on his rear foot, so he's going to go from his rear foot to his lead foot when he throws that cross. And James is going to look to follow up with his lead hook, going from his lead foot to his rear foot. So let's see that play out. They both miss. Now Mike's going to hook James right here around the waist, spinning him in this direction or across his body. Then Mike's going to follow up with this rear hook. Then look for a hook to the body right there. And then James is going to counter out with his own hook. And then Mike is going to dig into the body right there. Look for the hook up top, which he misses. Now James is going to get back to this lead foot to throw his lead hook. And that right there is going to do it for round 7. All right, this is round 8 of James Toney versus Mike McCallum. So James is going to get to his lead foot. He'll pendulum, then throw out a jab. Okay, James will swing this rear foot around, and once it lands, he's going to fire out a jab. And note this rear hand parry by Mike. Now, I love this. They're both going to drop, expecting the rear cross to come. Then Mike's going to go ahead and push off this rear foot, fold out a jab, looking for a rear hook to the body. And then James is going to counter with this uppercut hook. Now, James is going to follow him back with another uppercut. and then Mike's going to throw a jab. And we're going to see James drop underneath it right here. Now, James gets back to this lead foot. Mike doesn't do anything. He's going to move to his rear foot, and then he's going to slip back in as Mike looks for his counter jab. And then he's going to throw this leaping hook. Now James will jab as Mike parries and pulls. Then Mike's going to go ahead and push off this rear foot, double up his jab, and notice James as he pulls, then drops. And then James is going to come back, and he's going to double up, and you're going to check out the parry pull by Mike. So there's the parry and the pull. They'll time each other, and James will fold out one more. All right, this is slick. Mike's going to go ahead and feint low and check out the down parry by James. Then he's going to go ahead and go up top. Now James is going to jab. Check out this parry by Mike. James will jab again as Mike pulls, looks for his counter, and check out this rear hand parry by James. So they'll look to time each other with their leads. Now James is going to follow up with the rear cross while Mike looks for his double jab. Now Mike's going to triple it up. Another jab by Mike right here. They'll time each other again, and James will throw one more. Okay, James will jab as Mike does a lead hand down parry. He's going to follow up, looking for the hole in Mike's low guard right here. Mike's going to go ahead and double up his jab, and we're going to see James look to parry and pull, getting caught with his jab, and then James is going to drop straight down. He's going to come back with his own jab as Mike pulls, then drops. Mike's going to go ahead and fire his triple jab, but let's hone in on James. The first thing he did is pulled. Now he's going to drop, go in to his lead foot, bob down off of his lead foot, and weave to his rear foot. And then again, he's going to find that hole in Mike's low guard. Now this is neat by James. Mike's going to go ahead and fold out his jab, then follow up with a rear hook to the body. Now James is going to go ahead and catch it and then counter with his rear uppercut. Then they're going to go ahead and time each other with their leads. All right, Mike's going to flash his lead as James looks to parry right here. Now Mike's going to go to the body, and James is going to go ahead and catch it, and then he's going to counter out, and we'll see Mike drop right here. He's going to get back to this lead foot, fold out his jab. Then Mike's going to push off, double jab as James drops, then pulls, then he's going to go in. So James will jab as Mike looks to parry right here. Now Mike's going to go ahead and double up his jab, and we're going to see James pull first, then he's going to drop. Then they're going to look to time each other, and then a little bit of movement. Okay, James will jab as Mike parries. Now James is going to go to the body. We're going to see Mike drop straight down. Mike's going to go ahead and jab. We're going to see a parry by James. Then James is going to go high. Mike looks to counter, and now James is going to go to that body. Mike's going to push off his rear foot, snapping off his jab as James parries and pulls. Now James will go high as Mike looks low. Mike looks to jab as James pulls right here, and then James is going to jab as Mike pulls, and then they'll tack on that same beat. All right, this is neat. James is going to get his head to his lead foot, throw a leaping cross as Mike pulls. And one thing to note, notice Mike's shoulders. They're square, so when he pulls, it allows him to fire off this jab as James lands. Now, Mike's going to fire off another jab, and we're going to see James pull to his rear foot right here, and then he's going to come back and catch Mike with his rear cross. Now he's going to bob down over his lead foot as Mike looks for his own counter rear hand. Then James is going to catch this hook from Mike and then counter out with his rear cross, and we're going to see Mike drop right here. Super slick. So James will jab, and Mike's going to slip in, putting his head over his lead foot, looking for this hook to the body. Now, if accurate, James would have caught it and then countered out with his overhand as Mike bobs down over that lead foot. Then Mike will jab as James pulls. Okay, they'll look to time each other with their leads. Now James will jab as Mike parries, keeping the shoulder square, which allows him to fire off this counter jab. Now James pulls. Now Mike gets stuck on this lead foot. He's going to get caught with this rear cross from James. Now Mike looks to counter when he sees James pull to his rear foot. Now James is going to come back again. We're going to see Mike bob down over his lead foot. And now they're in this 50-50 position. Mike looks to hook high as James looks low. And then James again, he's going to go high, but check out the rear hand cover by Mike. And then Mike's going to go ahead and jab as James looks to parry and pull. All right, Mike's going to snap off this jab as James parries. Then Mike's going to go ahead and double up his jab, and we're going to see James slip inside to this lead foot. Then he's going to drop down right here off that second jab. And then Mike's going to go ahead and time James right here. So Mike will throw his jab rear cross, and we're going to see James pull, then drop. James will jab as Mike parries. Now, Mike's going to go ahead and fold out a jab, and then check this out. So James pulls, then drops, and Mike's going to follow him back with this lead hook. Now, James is going to explode out with overhand, then leaping hook, and then rear hook. Now, James will catch him with this little hook right here, follow up with a rear cross, and we're going to see Mike drop, then a little tie-up. Now Mike's going to go ahead and pendulum, use this lead hand for control, and then throw this rear hook to the body. And then he's going to look for a little hook up top. And then we're going to get some movement. All right, Mike's going to jab, throw this rear hook to the body as James parries, pulls, and then he's going to catch that hook. So Mike's going to feint this jab as James pulls. Then Mike's going to go to the body. James is going to catch it right here and then counter out with his overhand as Mike drops. They're going to go ahead and trade some body shots. Then Mike's going to go ahead and throw his hook rear cross as James pulls, then drops. And then James is going to go ahead and counter out with this rear straight. Now James is going to go ahead and throw his lead hook as Mike bobs down on that lead foot. Then Mike's going to throw his lead, then rear hook. James is going to throw his lead, and then Mike's going to come back with another lead hook, then bob under this rear straight from James. Okay, Mike's going to bring this rear foot behind him and then step his lead foot to replace his rear foot while hooking his right arm around his waist to step right around. And he's going to look for this lead uppercut. He's going to pull from this cross from James and then counter out with his own uppercut as James pulls. Mike will fold out a jab as James slips to that lead foot. Mike will double up his jab, rear cross, as James looks to counter with his uppercut. And one thing to note the bob by Mike. Mike will throw his lead hook, then go to the body. James catches it and then counters out with his rear cross as Mike drops and then looks for his rear hook to the body. Now James is going to jab as Mike parries, and then he's going to come back with his lead as James pulls. Then Mike's going to throw his rear hook, lead hook, and then he's going to go up top in the same sequence. Rear hook, lead hook. All right, Mike's going to throw his jab, rear hook to the body as James pulls, then drops. Then he's going to go ahead and throw a double lead uppercut. James is going to catch both them. And then James is going to pull to his rear foot, getting away from Mike's rear cross. And then he's going to counter, or James will, with his rear hand. Mike will look for his lead hook, rear hook. James again looks for his rear hand counter. Then James will throw his jab, rear cross as Mike parries, then drops. And this is a nice little sequence. Mike's going to throw his rear cross, leaping hook. James caught that leaping hook, and then he's going to counter out with his own hook. And James will look for the body. Then he's going to fold out a jab. Then he's going to throw a jab, rear cross as Mike drops. And that will do it for round 8. All right, here we go. Let's get into round 9 of James Toney versus Mike McCallum. All right, Mike will jab and drop as James parries and then drops. And then we're going to see this little shoulder bump. Mike will jab as James parries and pulls. Then James is going to go ahead and fold out a couple jabs here. Then right here now, after this jab, Mike's going to get to this lead foot and snap off a couple jabs, and then I'll do one more. Now this is a slick sequence. James is going to jab, Mike's going to slip into this lead foot, looking for his lead hook to the body. James is going to go ahead and catch it, and then he's going to hook out, and we're going to see Mike bob down over that lead foot. He's going to pop up, throw his jab, James is going to pull, and then James is going to counter with his rear uppercut, and Mike's going to look for this rear hook. Now James throws his short hook. Mike's going to throw his lead hook, rear hook, And then James is going to pull and then counter with this rear cross. They're going to go ahead and time each other right here. Now, James is going to throw his jab, rear cross, and we're going to see Mike pull, then drop. And then Mike's going to look for his lead hook, rear hook, but James is going to catch him with that short lead hook. And then we're going to see a little bit of movement. So they'll look to time each other with their leads. Then we're going to have a little bit of movement. Now, James is going to go ahead, get to this lead foot, throw his leaping hook, rear cross, and we're going to see Mike drop and then pull. Then Mike's going to fold out this jab. Now, right here, they're going to look to time each other again with their leads. And then James is going to jab, and we're going to see Mike parry and pull. And then we're going to get a little bit more movement. Okay, James is going to jab to the body as Mike drops. Then they're going to go ahead and time each other. Mike's going to snap off a jab as James pulls, and then another one, and check out that rear hand parry by James. James is going to go high as Mike goes low, and then Mike's going to fold out a jab as James pulls. Now, right here, so Mike's pulling, and note his square shoulders. And that's important because that allows him to counter back with his jab. And then what's interesting is James is going to go to the body right here. All right, Mike will throw this backhanded jab as James parries. He'll double it up, and James will parry, pull, then drop. Then they'll time each other with their leads. Now, James is going to jab, and right here, we're going to see Mike slip in to this lead foot to throw that lead hook. And then we're going to check out that catch by James. Now Mike's going to feint his lead as James looks to parry. Then he's going to catch him with that jab. James will drop. Mike's going to fire off another jab. Now James is going to push off this rear foot, snapping off a jab. And we're going to see Mike slip in to this lead foot, looking for that hook to the body. And then James is going to throw his own hook that Mike catches on this lead foot. We're going to see a little pendulum by James right here. He's going to throw his rear hook to the body. And then they're going to fold out some jabs. A little bit of movement. More jabs. So James is going to look for that hole just above Mike's lead low hand. Now Mike's going to triple up his jab, but let's hone in on James. He's going to pull, drop, and then go in. And then we're going to see James pendulum, snap out a jab, look for his rear uppercut. Then Mike will look for his lead hook, rear hook, but get caught in between with James's hook. They'll time each other. Mike will snap out a jab, gets inside, push off, jab. Okay, James will jab as Mike parries. Then Mike's going to go ahead and double up his jab. We're going to see James pull, then drop. So first the pull, then the drop. He's going to come back with his rear straight, and we're going to see Mike pull right here. Now, James is going to jab. We're going to see Mike parry and then counter with his own jab. Now, James is going to jab, and we're going to see Mike pull right here. Now they're going to attack each other on the same beat. James is going to come with his rear cross, and Mike is going to come with his jab, and then Mike wins that race. And then he's going to follow up with one more jab. All right, Mike's going to throw his double jab rear cross as James looks to pull, then drop, and then he's going to pull again. Now James is going to get back to this lead foot, and we're going to see Mike throw double hooks. He caught that first one. He pulled this second. Now James is going to counter with a rear uppercut, lead hook to the body, then head. And we're going to see Mike catch the first two, and then he's going to drop under that third. Now Mike's going to pendulum, throw this lead hook to the body, drop under this overhand from James. Mike's going to counter as James drops. And then we're going to see Mike follow up with a hook overhand. Then they're going to trade hooks. Mike will look to go over the top. Couple swings, just an inside battle. Now Mike's going to throw this rear uppercut as James pulls. Now Mike's going to jab, and we're going to see a rear hook to the body. James parries and then catches. And now he's countering with this rear uppercut. Mike will catch James with this hook. James will pull that rear cross and then counter with this straight. So Mike will throw his jab rear cross as James catches, then pulls. Then he's going to look for this rear uppercut as Mike gets stuck on that lead foot. Now Mike's going to go ahead and hook out, but check out this rear hand catch by James. And then Mike's going to jab as James pulls. Then Mike's going to double jab and then look for this hook to the body. Okay, Mike's going to push off, look for a hook to the body, then head. But let's hone in on James. He's going to catch this first hook right there, and then he's going to drop under that second. Now Mike's going to go to the other side. He's going to throw a rear hook to the body, then head. And again, let's check out James. He's going to catch that first hook, pull that second, and then he's going to throw this rear uppercut. Now, Mike's going to throw a lead hook, lead uppercut, then another hook right here. And then Mike's going to go ahead and fold out a jab, and then lead hook, and then we're going to see James drop. All right, Mike hooked his right arm around James. He'll pendulum step around right here. Then Mike's going to throw a jab, rear cross, and we're going to see James pull and then counter with this rear uppercut. Then Mike's going to jab and pendulum in. Now Mike's going to throw his lead hook, and we're going to see James catch it. And then James is going to counter with his lead, and we're going to see Mike pull and then throw a rear hook to the body. Now, Mike will go ahead and throw a lead hook, rear hook, and we're going to see James look to catch him in between with this rear uppercut. They'll time each other with hooks. They're going to go ahead and trade hooks again. Now, Mike's going to throw another as James pulls, and then gets back to this lead foot and throws another hook to the body. So Mike's going to feint this rear cross, and we're going to see James pull. Now he's going to look for his lead hook. We're going to see James get back to that lead foot to catch it. And then he's going to pull this rear hook from Mike right here. Then he's going to look for this lead hook to the body. We're going to see James catch, and then he's going to counter with his own hook. Then he's going to drop under this rear cross from Mike, weave to his lead foot right here. And then Mike will weave to his rear foot, bring it along this hook. Check out this rear hand cover by James. And then James is going to look to counter right back. Okay, so this is interesting. James is controlling Mike's head, keeping his head over Mike's lead foot. As soon as James releases, Mike's going to catch him with this hook right here. Now, James being on that rear foot, he's able to throw this rear cross, and then he's going to double it up. And then right here, we're going to see a rear uppercut from James. And then he's going to drop. Mike looks for his lead uppercut right here. They're going to time each other with their lead hooks. And then they're going to end up right where they started, with James controlling Mike's head. All right, James is going to throw his jab, rear cross, as Mike looks to catch and then counter on that same beat. Now James is going to look for his rear uppercut as Mike drops. Now Mike's going to throw his rear cross, lead cross, but then he's going to get caught by this hook from James. And that is going to do it for round 9. All right, here we are, round 10 of James Toney versus Mike McCallum.
And so we go to the 10th.
So James is going to get to this lead foot, throw his leaping hook as Mike bobs down over his lead foot. Mike's going to pop up, throw a lead hook as James looks for this rear uppercut. James will drop, throw this overhand, and we're going to see Mike drop under it.
Round of a fairly even fight. 9 minutes left in the fight.
Okay, Mike's going to push off as James looks for his rear uppercut. James is going to pendulum a couple of times, look for his jab, and then we'll have some movement.
As you know, in Tony's corner, they told him that he...
Now James will jab as Mike slips into this lead foot, looking for that lead hook to the body. James is going to catch it and look to counter out with his rear cross.
He was losing this fight, so I expect him to come out.
All right, James throws leaping hook, rear cross. We're going to see this catch by Mike. He's going to get caught by that cross. Now Mike's going to go ahead and snap off a jab as James throws his overhand. And then James is going to follow up with this hook. Then they're going to go ahead and cross their rear crosses. Now James is throwing this hook, and we're seeing Mike bob down over that lead foot. Mike's going to come over the top with his rear cross as James looks to counter with his rear straight. Now note this catch by Mike right here. Now let's hone in on Mike. He's going to go ahead and pull this potential cross. He's going to catch this hook, drop under that rear hook. He's going to pull this hook from James, drop under this little lead hook right here, get caught by that rear hook. He's going to pull this leaping hook from James, drop under the rear cross. Now he's going to look to catch this hook, drop under the rear hook, bob under the lead hook. Then Mike's going to fire off a couple jabs. And then some movement.
More aggressive this round.
Oh! And a bomb from Toney. And that one wobbled McCallum. And another right. Oh! Toney comes after him here at the 10. Oh my! Toney landing.
He moves away real well.
All right, Mike's going to pendulum, throw a lead hook to the body. See that catch by James, little push off. Then Mike's going to throw a rear hook to the body. Again, another catch by James. and another push off. Now, Mike's going to throw his hook overhand. Check out the catch by James, and then he'll drop that overhand. Then he's going to catch him right here with his hook, lead arm post, rear hook to the body.
That was a good defense by McCallum as the move back.
Toney looks a little spent from throwing those hard punches.
Oh, he cannot understand why did he get this guy out of there with those barrages of punches.
And McCallum lands one of his own.
So Mike's going to fold out his jab, then look for this hook up top, then to the body. Then we're going to see another jab, and then some movement.
On the left. Maybe Toney trying to get McCallum to expend some energy here. Yeah, he's got to take a little bit of a breather after that. He pushed.
Okay, Mike will jab as James pulls. Then Mike's going to jab again, and we're going to see James pull to that rear foot. Mike's going to double it up. We're going to see James pull, then drop. Then they're going to go ahead and trade hooks right here. Mike's going to throw his jab rear cross. Now, James is going to get to this lead foot, throw his leaping hook, and we're going to see Mike bob down over that lead foot.
Hard for that combination he threw.
McCallum can't get too overconfident here.
Toney looking for that.
Now Mike's going to jab as James pulls, and this is slick. James is going to get to this lead foot, throw his leaping jab as Mike pulls. And note when Mike pulls, see how he keeps his shoulder square, which allows him to counter with that jab. Now James is looking to get under it to throw this rear uppercut. And then James is going to throw his hook. Mike's going to go ahead and counter with this hook to the body. James will come back with that rear hook as Mike pulls. And then Mike's going to throw a rear straight. He's going to post right here, throw his rear cross. He gets stuck on this lead foot, and James is going to counter.
Left hook to put Michael Nunn away in the 11th in Iowa.
Well, he's got the tools, you know.
All right, James will jab as Mike parries. Then Mike's going to throw his lead hand counter, and we're going to see James pull. Then James is going to get back to this lead foot, throw his leaping jab, and then he's going to drop right here. Now, James will jab as Mike pulls. Mike's going to counter as James pulls. Then Mike's going to catch him with this hook to the body. Then he's going to look for this lead hook right here.
Both guys have really been loading up in this fight.
So Mike's going to throw this lead hook to the body. James will catch it. Then Mike's going to go to the head as James drops. Mike's going to throw the rear hook to the body. Again, note that catch by James. Another push off by Mike. Now, Mike's going to throw a double jab, rear cross, and we're going to see James catch it. Gets caught, pulls, counters with this rear uppercut.
You know, when you figure how short a time Toney's been fighting, only 24 years old, he's got a...
Okay, this is slick. Mike's going to slip in over this lead foot, and we're going to see James pull to his rear foot. Now, what's neat is Mike's going to throw a hook, and James is going to move back to that lead foot and see what happens. Mike misses with that hook. Now, Mike's going to follow up with a hook. Check out that catch by James. Then Mike's going to jab. Check out this parry. And then Mike will throw out two more.
Book full of experience, it looks like, for such a young age.
Sure. I am very impressed.
Now Mike's going to double jab, move into his left, and we're going to see James pull, then drop. James will get back to this lead foot, throw his jab. We're going to see Mike slip in right here. Now Mike's going to throw a backhanded jab, catching James, and then a little uppercut by James.
You see a young haggler up there, Marvelous?
All right, Mike will jab as James drops. Then James is in a counter. We're going to see Mike drop. Then we'll have a little bit of movement.
Of course not.
You can only give so much credit, I suppose.
So James is going to fold out a jab as Mike parries right here. Now James is going to fold out another jab, and what I want to show you is James is over his rear foot, Mike's over his lead foot. James is going to throw his rear cross, and we're going to see this check hook from Mike. They're going to go ahead and trade some body shots. James is going to go ahead and catch Mike with this hook. Mike's going to throw his rear straight, bob under James's hook, and then evade this lead hook. Now he stepped to the right. He's going to catch James with this overhand. He's going to get stuck on this lead foot and eat James' rear counter. Then Mike's going to snap off another jab. James is going to throw a jab rear cross as Mike pulls. Mike's going to get back to this lead foot, throw his hook, evade James' counter. Mike's going to throw a jab cross, bob under that rear hand counter from James.
No, but I believe both of them are tremendous champions.
Oh, left hand from Toney. Oh, my gosh.
Well, I tell you what, both of these fighters will be slow tonight, and they both has earned their money.
Toney's must be asking himself.
Okay, Mike's going to double jab. We'll see James drop, then pull. Then Mike's going to fire out another one as James pulls. Then they'll time each other with their leads. Then a little bit of movement.
What do I have to do to make this guy go down?
Okay, Mike's going to go up top as James goes low. All right, Mike will double jab as James pulls, then drops. Then they're going to go ahead and time each other. Mike with the jab, James with the hook. James will catch that jab and then drop under the second one.
Nice hook. This is what I was speaking about.
Knocked his mouthpiece out. Toney knocked McCallum's mouthpiece out with that left hook.
So James will throw his leaping jab as Mike pendulums to the left. James is going to follow up this rear cross and check out the rear hand parry by Mike. Mike will jab as James pulls, then drops. And then James is going to get caught with this hook by Mike. James is going to catch Mike with his rear hook. Mike will counter, and then check out this catch by James, and then the counter out with the hook. James is going to fold out his jab, followed up by a rear cross, catch a Mike. And then right here, Mike needs to go get a mouthpiece. And back at it.
And there goes Smoker to pick it up. That was a dynamite left hook. Another one.
McCallum is dropping his hands a lot more.
All right, timeout.
The problem I see too is also the swelling under McCallum's eyes starting to come up.
Okay, this is going to be a mouthful. Mike's going to go ahead and fold out his jab as James looks to parry. James is going to jab. We're going to see Mike pull. And then he's going to counter with his lead. James will catch, drop, counter with his rear cross as Mike pulls. Now, this is neat. James is going to look for his rear uppercut right here. Now, note James is square with Mike. And then Mike is going to fire off a rear cross. But note, he's currently in the southpaw stance. So here comes that rear cross from Mike. James will counter with this hook. Mike's going to go ahead, come over the top with his overhand. James will counter to the body. Mike will throw a hook as James catches it and then throws this lead hook. James will throw an uppercut. Mike will look for another counter, then pull, then fold out another jab.
Another right from Toney. Oh! Toney digs one into the body. And the left. Toney trying to end it right here in the tape.
Now Mike's going to jab, moving left as James pulls. James will throw a jab rear cross right here. And that is going to do it for round 10.
McCallum has got to stay in tighter.
Okay, round 11 of Mike McCallum versus James Toney.
McCallum. Wow.
So here's the 11th round. That's the round where Toney
All right, James will jab as Mike parries and pulls.
got none in Iowa.
Now, I like this move a lot. James, he got to his lead foot. He's going to throw his leaping jab. Now, note, he dropped, head over that rear foot. Now, right here, Mike's going to jab. We're going to see James drop. And then he's going to pop up, throw his rear cross as Mike drops. And then Mike's going to fold out a jab.
Less than 6 minutes to go in this championship.
So James is going to feint his lead hand and then pump out that jab. Check the parry by Mike. Something else to note, check out this rear hand cover by Mike in case the rear cross from James should come. Instead, James fires out another jab as Mike looks to parry. Now James is going to throw his jab rear cross, and we're going to see Mike parry both. 1, 2. Mike shows us how important it is to keep that rear hand up. Okay, Mike will jab as James drops. James is going to throw his overhand as Mike drops, and then James is going to look for this little hook right here. Then some bodying up.
Toney jabbing and the right hand.
Boy, Toney just looks like he's got all the confidence in the world come out.
All right, Mike will jab as James parries. James is going to counter, and note this drop by Mike. Now James is going to throw his leaping jab, but Mike's going to catch him coming in. And then we're going to see right here, Mike's going to jab. We're going to see James slip to that lead foot and throw his leaping hook.
This round here, he's got 6 minutes left, 2 rounds. I think this could seal the fight for him if he wins these 2 rounds.
Now Mike will jab as James drops. And now James, he's looking for this rear uppercut. Then he's going to come over the top. Mike will throw his rear hook, then lead hook. James will counter with this uppercut. Mike will throw a lead hook, rear hook. And then James is going to counter with his rear hook, lead hook.
Oh, vicious body punches.
So Mike will jab as James looks to parry and pull. Then James is going to look for his jab as Mike pulls. James is going to throw his jab rear cross, and we're going to see Mike drop right here and then pull to his rear foot. Mike will look for his jab as James comes up with this hook, and then James is going to flick out a jab right here.
Nice combinations by both fighters.
Okay, Mike's going to push off, snap off a jab as James parries right here, and then James is going to fold out one himself.
Left from Toney.
Toney does look the fresher out of the bowl.
All right, James will jab as Mike pulls, and then Mike's going to come back with this rear cross, and we're going to see James pull, and then James is going to come back with this rear uppercut to the body. And then Mike's going to counter out with this hook that James catches.
Nice slip by Toney, rocking back, coming back with that uppercut. Just some real...
Now James is going to throw his jab rear across. Mike's going to look to parry and pull. James is going to fire out another jab right here. And then Mike's going to double up, going left.
Magnificent boxing here.
This is what McCallum has been doing all night.
Mike will shoot this jab to the body. Couple feints moving left. And then James will look to parry and drop.
We're coming close to the mark where Toney knocked out none in that 11th.
Okay, James will jab as Mike parries and drops. Some movement. James will jab as Mike pulls. Mike's going to look for his counter as James pulls. Now, Mike's going to go ahead and throw out a triple jab, but let's hone in on James. First, he's going to parry. Then he's going to pull. Then he's going to slip to that lead foot right there. And then Mike's going to catch James, snap out another one, and then again as he drops.
Around here. I'm sure he'd like a repeat. But I don't think so. McCallum looks like this is going the distance, and it's going to a decision almost for sure.
All right, Mike's snapping out his jab as James pulls. Now, Mike's going to double it up, and we're going to see James slip into this lead foot, looking for his lead hook to the body, and check out this rear hand cover by Mike. Now, James is going to follow up with a rear cross. Mike pulls and then fires out that rear straight. James is going to get to his lead foot, throwing this leaping jab as we see Mike pull, and then he's going to throw his rear cross, and we're going to see Mike drop right here. A little tie up, then a push off.
Continues to use that jab midway through the 11th. Toney goes after it.
Very good move by McCallum in there, slipping both punches.
Now they'll time each other with their leads.
Moving side to side.
So Mike's going to jab while James's head is over his rear foot. James drops. He's going to counter with this rear cross. And then he's going to hook, and we're going to see Mike bob down over that lead foot. We'll have a little tie-up. James is going to get off a rear uppercut, overhand.
The mark of a smart fighter.
Ooh. Toney just looking to tee off, and McCallum really looking a little winded, tying him up on the inside right now.
Okay, Mike will jab, catching James. Then he's going to catch him to the body.
Now,
Well, I think he knows the difference that he has.
All right, James will jab as Mike drops, and then James is going to go ahead and double it up. And we're going to see Mike pull to that rear foot.
Has to go another round. He will have.
Now, Mike's going to go ahead and quadruple jab. So let's hone in on James. First, he's going to parry, then drop, then pull, and then we'll see another parry.
Nothing more than the two. But I think he's.
So this is interesting. James is in a jab. We're going to see Mike slip into his lead foot. Then he's looking to weave any follow-up, and he's going to fire out this hook and then catch this counter from James.
He'll be pleased just if he can just box and try to just.
Okay, they'll look to time each other. James is going to go up top, and then Mike's going to go to the body. Now James is going to throw his jab, rear cross, lead uppercut, and we're going to see Mike pull and look to catch that lead uppercut. Then James is going to get him with this little hook.
Add up the points.
Well, he's doing it with that good jab he's using right now.
All right, Mike will jab as James drops. James is going to come back with this overhand. We're going to see Mike pull. Then he's looking to counter with his rear uppercut, but we're going to see James bob down over that lead foot. Then they'll time each other right here. Now James will jab as Mike parries. He's going to counter with his lead, and James is going to come over the top. Now, James is going to go ahead and catch Mike with his jab. Then Mike will jab as James parries.
Toney, more of the complete fighter than we saw last May, for sure.
So James will jab as Mike pulls, and notice how he kept his shoulder square. James is going to follow up with the rear cross as Mike pulls and looks to parry. Mike's going to counter with this rear cross. We're going to see James bob down over that lead foot. Then they're going to look to time each other. Mike will jab as James pulls. Then he's going to look for the body.
Well, sometimes it takes a
nice
great
right
fighter.
hand by Toney.
Excuse me, Mark. It takes a great fighter to bring out the best in a talent sometimes.
Exactly. Well, you know, with Toney, this fight here can do nothing.
Okay, James will jab, throw his rear cross as Mike looks to counter with his lead, and then he's going to pull. Mike's going to go ahead and jab as James counters with his rear hook. Mike will throw his rear straight, and then jab as James parries. James is going to come over the top. We're going to see Mike pull. Mike will try to get this rear uppercut, and then James is going to look for his lead and rear hooks.
But improve him, whichever happens.
Toney again looking for that knockout punch with 20 seconds remaining.
All right, James is going to get to this lead foot, fire out his jab. We're going to see Mike pull. Mike's going to try to catch him in between, but James is going to come over the top with his rear cross, and then we see Mike drop. Now, Mike's going to go ahead and double up his feint, and then James is going to catch him coming in, and then James is going to go up top as Mike goes to the body.
Remaining in the 11th round.
Now Mike will look for the body as James pulls. Then they'll time each other. So Mike will jab as James drops, and then he's going to look for this rear uppercut to the body. Then we're going to get some movement. Okay, Mike's going to look for the body as James throws this overhand. Mike's going to look for his lead hook, rear straight. He's going to get caught by this hook from James. Mike will throw his, and then James will look to counter out. And that will do it for round 11.
Overhand from Toney. Wow. Just as the round came to a...
All right, here we go. This is round 12 of Mike McCallum versus James Toney.
They should be on their feet for this fight. It's just been tremendous.
Okay, James is going to get to this lead foot, throw his leaping hook as Mike catches right here. Now, Mike's going to go ahead and drop, then snap off a jab. Check out that parry by James. Now, James is going to jab, and we're going to see Mike catch and then counter out. And then we're going to see James return the favor as Mike pulls.
3 minutes to go for the championship.
So they'll look to time each other, and then same thing, then some movement.
I think
Mike will jab as James slips into this lead foot, looking for his leaping hook. And note this catch by Mike. Mike's going to go ahead and jab. We're going to see James drop right here, throwing the rear cross as Mike looks to pull. And then Mike's going to come back with his rear uppercut. Now, James is going to look for his lead hook to the body.
McCallum's really got to go for broke here. I'm giving Toney the last 3-4 rounds here. Oh, good.
All right, Mike will jab as James drops. Now, James is looking for his overhand, and we're going to see Mike pull. Then Mike's going to look to counter with his rear uppercut. Now, Mike's going to go ahead and triple jab, but let's hone in on James. First, he's going to go ahead and drop. Then he's going to pop up, then drop, and then throw a rear uppercut as Mike pulls.
Right uppercut by McCallum.
Toney had landed a left hook moments before. Right.
Okay, Mike will jab as James looks to parry. Then he's going to counter, and we're going to see Mike pull. Then we have a little bit of movement.
Left hook moments before.
Right. But he followed that uppercut he got hit with, Toney did.
So Mike's going to go ahead and shoot this jab to the body. Now James is going to jab. We're going to see Mike pull. And then Mike's going to go ahead and catch him with this lead counter. James will look to throw his hook. Mike's going to counter with his jab. And then James is going to come over the top. We're going to see Mike drop. And then come back with this rear hook, lead hook. James will counter with his rear uppercut, lead uppercut to the body. Then he'll double it up. Mike's going to go ahead and throw out his rear straight. We're going to see James pull. Then Mike's going to throw his jab. And we see James drop. And then last, James is going to go ahead and come back with this rear uppercut.
With a good left hook to the liver on McCallum. I said there's no quit in either one of these guys and no shortage of talent.
I think Toney would be more
Now they'll look to time each other with their leads, then move.
effective if he laid off the power and put this combination together.
Right.
All right, James is going to get to his lead foot, throw his leaping hook as Mike drops. Little push off right here.
I think you're right. Rather than the wild swings and misses.
Exactly. Every time
Okay, they'll look to time each other.
that he misses, it takes a little out of a fighter.
But I just felt that McCallum lacked the power as the fight went on.
So James will jab as Mike parries. Mike will counter with his lead, and we're going to see James pull. Then Mike's going to follow up with his rear hook to the body. They'll look for body shots, and then James is going to catch Mike with this hook. Mike's going to counter with his rear cross. Then James is going to throw his lead hook as Mike drops. Then we'll have a rear uppercut by James.
Particularly from the 8th on. I just didn't think he had as much in his punches as Toney does.
You're right.
Now Mike will double up his jab. We're going to see James pull, then look to drop. James is going to counter with his rear cross as Mike pulls, and then comes back with a jab. We're going to see James bob down over that lead foot. Now James is going to look for his lead hook to the body. Then we're going to have a push off.
McCallum just can't get careless in there.
All right, Mike will jab as James parries. Now, James is going to snap off his jab as Mike drops.
Well, providing this fight is as close as we...
Now, Mike will jab as James parries and pulls. He's going to go ahead and double it up, but James is going to come back with this rear cross, and we're going to see Mike drop down right here. Now, they're going to go ahead and body up. Mike's going to throw his rear cross as James looks to time him with that hook. They're going to go ahead and trade hooks. Mike with his lead, James with his rear. And then James is going to throw this leaping jab as Mike parries. Then they're going to go ahead and body up again.
I think neither of them can really get careless at this point, but both of them have got to really put out and try to win this round.
Oh, very good fight. They acknowledged here that this should be the...
Okay, check out Mike's rear foot step. He's going to step around James. Then he's going to go ahead and do a little pendulum step, rip off a hook, rear cross, as James looks to counter with his rear cross. Now they're going to go ahead and body up. Mike's going to fire out this hook. James is going to counter. James is going to get back to this lead foot to throw another leaping hook. And then we're going to see another hook as Mike pulls. He'll throw a rear cross. We're going to see Mike drop. Then he's going to catch Mike with this lead uppercut. He'll throw another hook, rear uppercut. And then he's going to throw a hook, and we see Mike pull. He'll throw a rear cross. Again, Mike pulls. James will throw his hook, and then one more pull by Mike. And then he's going to come back with this rear cross, and then leaping hook, and check out that catch by Mike.
The fight of the year here in Atlantic City.
Oh, yeah. Good right hand by McCallum.
Oh! The left from Toney. Oh! And Toney goes after McCallum. Oh! Oh! The right hand from Toney. Another right into the ropes.
So James will look to throw this leaping hook. He'll follow up with a rear cross. Now James is going to go ahead and catch Mike with this rear uppercut, lead hook. Mike's going to go ahead and push off as James throws his hook. James will throw a hook as Mike pulls. Then James is going to throw his rear cross, and we're going to see Mike drop down right here.
He's got McCallum hurt badly, and he's still got a minute 15
And
to
a
take
right
care of
uppercut
business.
from Toney. McCallum still standing.
Now James is going to throw his rear cross. Then Mike's going to jab as James drops, comes back with this overhand, and then we're going to see Mike drop and then come up with that rear uppercut. Then we'll have a little push off.
Look at that recuperative powers.
Nothing in his punches, though, McCallum.
All right, Mike's going to leap off this lead foot, throw out his jab, and then follow up with a rear hook to the body. James is going to go ahead and throw his lead hook, rear hook, and then Mike's going to look for a rear uppercut right here. James is going to fold out a couple jabs, and then they're going to go ahead and trade hooks.
What determination to stay up and to fight back by McCallum.
McCallum to survive. The punishment he's taken, just remarkable by Mike McCallum.
Okay, Mike's going to double jab, and we're going to see James pull, then drop. Now, we saw this a little bit earlier. Mike's stepping that rear foot around, and then he's going to throw this lead hook. James will counter with that rear cross, and then we're going to see a push off.
Man, let me tell you. And Tony's a little spent from throwing those punches.
Has to be.
So Mike will jab as James looks to parry. Mike's going to follow up with this rear hook, and then James is going to counter with this hook, and then come back with a rear hook as Mike looks to pull.
Oh!
Now James will jab as Mike pulls. Then he's going to look to counter with a double jab. We're going to see James pull, then drop. Now, James is going to pump out a double jab, rear cross, and check out this lead hand parry by Mike. Then he'll flick out a jab.
McCallum's mouth wide open. Toney looking for one more punch inside of 30 seconds.
All right, Mike will jab as James parries. He'll fire out another one, and we're going to see James counter with this rear cross as Mike drops. Then we'll have a tie-up and a break.
And the crowd starting to rise to its feet.
Oh,
in the
they've got
final
to.
seconds.
What a great fight.
They've seen.
Okay, James will jab as Mike looks to pull. Mike's going to go ahead and throw his jab and then rear hook to the body. James will catch, counter with this hook, then rear uppercut. And then Mike will jab as James pulls. Then he'll go to the body.
A terrific 12-round middleweight championship fight tonight in Atlantic City.
You've seen the best in the business here tonight. This
So James will jab as Mike parries. Mike's going to counter with his jab, and we're going to see James drop, and then he's going to come back with that overhand as Mike drops. Now, Mike's going to go ahead and get caught with this hook. He'll fire out a jab as James pulls, looks for his rear cross. Then right here, they're going to go ahead and trade. James will go ahead and catch Mike with this leaping hook, then rear hook to the body, then lead hook. And there he's going to do it again, one more, and that is a wrap.
was a great show.
You like to see McCallum hang in there.
Oh! Another left from Toney. And another left hook.
That's it.
And he goes down punching in the 12th round.